For the delay. We were having some technical difficulties. If you're able to hear me, can you comment in the chat? Okay. All right. It sounds like people can hear me. I'm going to go ahead and share screen, Jeff. So just let me know when you would like me to switch the screen.
I will, I promise.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh, let me pull this up. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lily. And thank you for joining today's session, Busting Myths About Migrating from GP or SL to the Cloud. Before we get started, I do need to cover a few housekeeping details. First, you may notice that you are currently on mute, but no worries, you can still interact with us through the chat. If you also have technical difficulties, you can comment there as well, and we can help you out. All right, I think that covers it all for now. I would like to introduce Jeff Smith. You can take it away, Jeff.
Okay. Sorry, So my name is Jeff Smith, and please accept our apologies for our technical difficulties. Our goal today is to cover, for those of you that may be using Dynamics GP or Dynamics SL, what options are going to be available for you to move forward, and things that you should be thinking about as we do. So just to give you a little background on me, I've been with the organization for about 32 years. My first 25 years were with Dynamics GP. So I've been a consulting manager, and I've been in pre-sales. And then about 7 years ago, I made a switch over to Dynamics 365 Business Central. So our goal today is to talk about where you are with GP and SL, what your options are for moving forward, as some big announcements have come out from Microsoft over the recent months. So Lily, if you could move to the next slide. So our agenda for today is to talk a little bit about the history of GP and SL, and you might be surprised at how long those products have been around. We're going to talk about some announcements by Microsoft, but really what we wanted to talk about is there are really myths out there on what's possible, what's not possible, and we wanted to make sure that we educated you that way. Then I wanted to kind of finish up with some considerations, things that you should be thinking about as you move forward in your evaluation of where to go next. And then Lily and I will talk a little bit about clear path consultation, which is something that Velosio is offering to help evaluate for you what is a good path forward. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of history, probably more than anything, just to give you a smile on your face to see how far back some of these software products have gone. So in 1981, Great Plains Accounting and Solomon Software were released to the public. They, at that time, were DOS-based products. So the heritage of SL and GP really started 40 plus years ago. In 1994, Great Plains introduced Great Plains Dynamics, which was a Windows-based application, and then Solomon Software was acquired by Great Plains in 2000. So Great Plains, now GP, and Solomon, now SL, have been intertwined in competitive and then sister products since way back when. In 2001, Microsoft acquired Great Plains, which also then owns Solomon and a product called FRX. If you may have used that in the past. Next slide, please. So Microsoft has announced that they are going to be sunsetting both the Dynamics GP and Dynamics SL. And really all support will end by 2029 for those products. So there are some things out there that people worry about, some myths in regards to making the move. and migrating away. So I wanted to kind of bust those myths a little bit if we could. So first of all, when it comes to the idea of migration being too expensive, well, Microsoft is really encouraging their their clients, I should say, to move to the next generation Microsoft products, which includes Dynamics 365 Business Central and Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. But we also want you to consider that there are other products out there, and Velosio represents NetSuite as well. So we're going to throw in a little bit of context around those products. Also, Microsoft is providing migration incentives for those who qualify to make the move to Business Central or to Finance and Operations. So that's one thing that we want you to be aware of, and certainly talk to our account managers here within the organization to find out how and what you qualify for, to make sure that we can find a way to make it a little less expensive, so to speak. Also, there are migration tools that exist to move data from GP or SL to Business Central to help streamline the process, to take less time to provide you with that migration. And then there's also a migration tool that exists to move data from GP, not SL, to F&O to streamline that process. So there are tools out there that are focused on making with Microsoft, making a way for you to, in an easier way, in a less expensive way, make your way to the Microsoft next generation products. But even with, a NetSuite, there are templates available. And so we've done enough of these that we really have streamlined the process. So we're hoping that we can make it as easy and inexpensive as possible to move from GP or SL to Business Central, to Finance and Operations, or NetSuite. We have standard migration master records and open transactions, and we also have moving to the cloud provides hidden savings that you may not be thinking about. So obviously Microsoft is providing us with some tools to move off GP or SL and move into Business Central, or on the GP side, there's also a migration tool to move to Finance and Operations. But there's also templates available. So just reiterating to you that there are ways to make the process take less time, cost less money. But also, I want you to think about some other things that could make this process seem a little less pricey or a little less costly. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Lily. This is a slide that I've used forever and ever and ever since Business Central was released, and that's where I spend my time. But I really want you to think about some other things beyond what those incentives are, beyond what those tools are to help you migrate. But what's the difference between a cloud-based application like NetSuite, Finance and Operations, or Business Central compared to what you're doing today? So you'll notice that we have this illustration that shows two icebergs. One illustrates on-premise software, one illustrates cloud. So one thing you're going to notice is that when you were originally investing in SL or GP, you were buying the software, and then you were paying annual maintenance charges. Today, the software is subscription based. So there's an ongoing per user per month subscription for Business Central, Finance and Operations, and also costs similar to that with NetSuite. But what's really deceiving and what you really have to pay attention to is if you look on the right on the on-premise software, you're also paying for implementation and training just like you are with a cloud application. But you have hardware costs, you have IT personnel costs, you have ongoing maintenance for the hardware, but also the software. You have upgrade costs and the cost of enabling remote work. So a lot of times people ran into this issue around the COVID time in regards to having people working at home, but maybe not being prepared for that, and then putting in VPNs and things like that so that people could access their software remotely. Obviously, a cloud-based application is going to give you that automatically. So as you look at the true cost of implementing a cloud application versus an on-premise application, you realize that there is a significant difference in the other costs that come into play. So I know that one thing in comparing the upgrade idea as an example with Business Central or Finance and Operations with NetSuite, upgrades are provided via the manufacturer of the software, and it's more of an automatic push because the software is designed differently than it was in the past. So no longer do you need to take your system down, no longer do you have to run test upgrades on your software, and so forth. So that is a big difference in regards to making sure that you stay updated so that you're working with the most current set of functions and so forth. So just keep this in mind as you're thinking about where you're going next. Next slide, please. The second question or fear is we lose all of our historical data. And for some of our clients, that really doesn't end up being much of an issue. So what happens in that case is that we'll bring across your master records, we'll bring across your open transactions and so forth. So my open AP, my open AR, my open bank balances with outstanding checks, those types of things. Because historical data is hard to move. There's a lot of application, there's a lot of data. Some clients of ours have 20 plus years of historical data, and some have it for peace of mind. Some people have it for requirements, more of just making sure they stay in alignment. So anyway, there are migration tools that are available that exist for GP and SL to move to Business Central as an example. So that historical data can then be moved into what we call extension tables. And while that data may not exist inside of the typical data tables that history would go to, it is available to be inquired within the software. So that's one thing to think about as you're looking at this. Another example of what we can do is using what's called Microsoft Fabric. So we can create an environment in Azure, kind of a data warehouse where that all of your data from GP or SL can be stored, and then data can be incorporated in reports and inquiries. So you'll have that information available to you with really just the move of your application to the Azure cloud or to Oracle's infrastructure as well. And then also legacy data can be migrated as entries as to post as well. So a lot of times from speaking to our NetSuite team, that's what they will do is they'll migrate it through entries and they'll post those through the system to make sure that you have that information. Next slide, please. So here's what I was talking about, just a screenshot of one of the tools that's available. And these are available on AppSource, which is an area on Microsoft's AppSource site where you can get add-on type products. And one of them, this one in particular, wraps around being able to migrate your data. So you can see here that we're actually, in this example, we're in Business Central, but we have a cloud migration tool that will allow us to pull data from GP or SL into the solution. Next slide. So with NetSuite, Microsoft Fabric can also be used to be a data warehouse for historical data and then can be incorporated into reports and queries as well. Legacy data and applications can be used, just like we talked about before, to access that data. So if you just want to leave your data out there or your old application out there, you'll be able to get to it that way as well. So it is two different systems, so it does make it a little less attractive, I suppose, but it certainly depends on the necessity, how often you need that data, etc. And then with NetSuite, you also can move that data through entries that you integrate and then post. So Microsoft Fabric does work as a data warehouse, and it can be incorporated. So just keep that in mind. I'm kind of overemphasizing that here. So just understand that there are a variety of ways to get that data moved so that you still have access to that. So hopefully you can see how we can bust myth number 2. Next slide, please. And this is an example of what that Microsoft Fabric environment might look like. So you can move your data into the Microsoft Fabric environment, acting as a data warehouse. Business Central or F&O or NetSuite could have access to that information. That information can also be reported upon using things like Power BI, Copilot, Excel. And for those of you who have used SL and GP for a long time and maybe did SQL inquiries, we certainly can do that as well. Next slide. So one of the really big myths, and I think opinions have changed as time has gone along, and this has been proved out. A lot of people are worried that the cloud isn't secure. Well, the cloud actually is more secure. You're not going to run into situations like you've heard on the news or through maybe others in your industry or so forth, where there's ransomware and things like that, because both Microsoft and Oracle will provide you with a very secure environment to house your software so that it is less apt to be intruded upon. So Business Central and Finance and Operation reside in Microsoft's Azure cloud environment. And that allows us to have data encryption and key management. It allows us to have identity and access management. So it does provide you with that single sign-on capability using Azure Active Directory, which is similar to Active Directory that you may be familiar with today. It has advanced threat detection and monitoring. It has compliance and governance and data redundancy and disaster recovery. So it's actually going to be providing you with backups and providing you with ways to get at your data if something would happen to have in your situation. So just understand that from a Microsoft perspective, their cloud environment is very secure, has guaranteed uptimes of 99.9%, so that you really are in an environment, a safe and secure environment that allows you to continue to move forward. And I always think of my days in GP when batches used to get interrupted when my server would have a glitch. That never happens because the system is going, once you've started like a posting process, the system continues to run all along. Next slide. So NetSuite's going to provide you a different environment, but really give you the same functionality. So NetSuite's going to reside in the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, which is a similar environment to Azure, but it's Oracle's instead of Microsoft's. So it's going to have cloud architecture, multi-tenancy, data centers, and global deployment. I like to point that one out because there is the redundancy I was talking about before, is that you can have your data residing in a data center, but it's also going to reside in a different data center in case one data center may have some issue. So your data is very, very safe. Next slide. Now, the next one is customizations. As a GP consultant in the past, I know a lot of our clients had at least some level of customization, or at the very least, they had add-on or third-party applications that they had within their system. But I think there's some things that you need to think about. First of all, there are cases in which your customization is going to need to be recreated because you are in a different environment. But there are other things that you can look at before you really have to get to that point. So is the customization still required? Because a lot of times the new applications may have functionality that will cover that. What required customization in the past may not require it now. Is there an add-on solution available to provide that required functionality? So that's very possible as well. If currently using an add-on solution, oftentimes what we've found is the organizations that have created add-on solutions for GP and SL now have their products ported over, and they work with Business Central as an example. So you want to look in and see if those applications are going to be available within that new solution. Again, being a GP guy, we worked with a company called Binary Stream. Binary Stream had applications that they now have available both on the F&O environment as well as on the Business Central environment. The other thing you may find is that NetSuite's going to have applications, a full suite. They use less of a third-party model and more of a full suite of applications that may cover that application as well. So really, you end up asking your question: is this customization really still required? And in some cases, it will be, and we certainly know that, and that will be a cost that you'll encounter. Next slide. All right, so the last one is the transition will disrupt our business. Well, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that this really is not a myth, because even if you're really organized and you've got it all thought out, there's still a transition that has to go on. And so at least there's going to be some disruption to the organization because you got to do your day job while you're making this migration. But while there is impact that you need to think about, you know, you can minimize that by having requirements and goals established. What do I have now? What do I want to have? You need to have a plan, an attainable timeline. And timeline is going to be really important in this whole conversation. You need to be prepared. You have to have your team on board. You have to assign responsibilities. So who's going to do what? And for those of you that may have small staffs, and maybe this is daunting for you, just leverage your partner. Velosio is very glad to help any of you in regards to making a smart decision as you move from GP and SL. Next slide. So one of the reasons that we're talking to you now is this takes time. So when you're evaluating a new application, you may go through a series of steps that could take a year or two. It could. So a lot of times when you're looking to make a change, you need to look at all your alternatives. So you may actually prepare an RFP or an RFI, and it could take a couple months to put that together. You may have a consulting partner that's helping you do it. Your strategic needs analysis is going to take time. So now you got to look at what are we doing in GP or SL, but also what are we going to need in the future? Do we have changes to our business since we implemented? Then you got to get into the whole budgeting process and making sure that you have the funds to do it. And then you go through a software selection process. And then when all of that's done and you've made your choice, you still have to implement. So that's going to take time. So it's really important that we're talking here in late 2025 because 2029 is coming, and that's a deadline for support for both GP and SL. Next slide. So this is what I was talking about. So Microsoft announced in September of last year that there is an end-of-life timeline for both the products. This aligns with Microsoft's shift toward a cloud environment. And so we certainly expect that you could look at Business Central or Finance and Supply Chain, as well as Oracle NetSuite. And you may have others in mind as well based upon your experience. But the key is that all of us now in a different time are looking for something that's modern, has a long-term development and support roadmap. It's scalable, it's flexible. So all of those things come into play as you're looking at what's next. So again, just to emphasize, December 2029, Microsoft support and updates end, and in 2031, critical security paths end. So you really need to be thinking now because time flies when you're having fun, so to speak. Next slide. So some other considerations that I want you to think about are, what are my reporting requirements? What are my ISVs, as we talked about just a little bit ago? What is the long-term product roadmap for the tools that you're looking at? So, being a Business Central guy, I know that there is a long-term roadmap of development and support for Business Central. The same could be said for Finance and Operations and NetSuite. Connectivity to operational solutions. So maybe you're a healthcare organization and you have special billing application, but it needs to connect. Team collaboration is another thing that's really important. So does the solution offer itself up to better collaboration and process efficiency. Also, I say this as a loyal Velosio employee, but your solution partner and their experience can be a big deal. So when you're thinking about what you want to do, make sure you're thinking about that. And then also just infrastructure requirements. So some of our clients, based upon where they are, they have to be on premise versus the cloud. But certainly we want to make sure that you're at least thinking about, the cloud if at all possible, unless there are some restrictions that your organization has. Next slide. So what Business Central and Finance and Operations and NetSuite all have in common is their next generation cloud-based applications. But you may not know enough about any one of those to make a decision. So what Velosio is offering is they're offering a clear path consultation to allow us to talk to you to help understand what you're doing, where you want to go, help you look at what your options are, and then understand if there are any funding opportunities for us to lower cost, that we are aware of those and we move forward with them. So personalized budget planning is included in that clear path consultation. Evaluating your options is also included. Certainly, we as a partner have the ability to unlock funding opportunities if they're available from Microsoft or NetSuite. And then we want to make sure that we help you plan for every scenario, reducing the risk of unexpected costs. So that might be talking about licensing costs. That might be talking about additional ISV or third-party applications that are required. It might be about the implementation and so forth. And we want to make sure that we're thinking about all of the requirements that we have to make sure that we're in a good way moving forward. Next slide. So that's really what we wanted to cover today. I am sincerely sorry that we had some technical difficulties, and Lily and I are a little bit out of sync here in regards to what we can show and how we show it. But hopefully this message is clear that we really need to make sure that that you're thinking about the right things and that you're planning for the future with a product, whatever that best product is, that meets your needs for the long term. So, Lily, can we still field a few questions?
Yeah, it looks like we have one question that has come through, and it's from Amanda, and she put this in the chat at the beginning. They asked, does this include migration/replacements for Management Reporter 2012 for Dynamics ERP?
That's a great question. So, interestingly enough, I'll go through all three products. Management Reporter only exists for finance and operations at this point. They have modernized it and they've made it a part of the finance and operation application. So yes, for that. Business Central does not have Management Reporter as an option at this point, but there are other options. And so there is financial reporting functionality right in the general ledger. And then NetSuite has its own financial reporting engine as well. So Management Reporter, there would have to be some transition one way or the other, even if you were to move to finance and operations, because there would be some changes and some necessity to update as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. It doesn't look like we have any other questions coming through. So if you happen to have any questions, please reach out to your account manager or reach out to us through our website if you don't have an account manager. And we are always happy to help. And thank you, Jeff, for joining us today and everyone else for taking time out of your day. In the next couple of days, keep an eye on your inbox. You'll be receiving an email from me, which will include the recording link so you can view this again, as well as the link to that ClearPath consultation. So keep an eye out for that. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.